Hello there, it's Sandy Allnock with the final Create in Color for 2020. You know what that means? 2020 is about over. I am ready to kick this one to the curb. Anybody else? So I'm going to do an ode to 2020 for my last card here with a socially distanced birthday card. My niece has a birthday coming up in January, and this seemed like an appropriate thing for her. She's in the medical field. She lives in San Francisco, where they are doing lockdowns and stuff because COVID's gotten so bad there, but she is doing an excellent job of taking care of herself and her fiance, and I wanted to send her a birthday card to celebrate that with these three little critters. In the stamp set, which is called Tea Party, there's a table in there, so you can put them around the table and die cut that and put it up on top and have them sitting around the table. But since I'm doing a socially distanced one, I decided the table wasn't really needed, and it also gave me the chance to color everything in each one of the little critters, because if the table's in front of them, I don't get the chance to do all the coloring, and I'm all about coloring all the things. So there you go. And I've stamped them in craft ink. That allows me to do some adjusting along the way. I have a little surprise for you when I get to the critter on the right, to do some changes to it. If you've stamped in black ink, it's a little harder to make revisions to things and drawing your own design elements of different parts of it. So it's kind of helpful to stamp in a lighter ink. It doesn't have to be craft ink. It can be anything really pale because it basically disappears, which is why they call it no line coloring. I still have not figured out why it isn't just coloring, but it is what it is, because that's what everybody knows that it's called. So there you go. It's just coloring. And for things like black hats, I'm using a black for the first layer of detail and then just going over the whole thing with a C8. And that gives me a little bit of difference in the black hat, a little bit of detail in there without going crazy over it. And I'll do the same thing with some other black elements in this. Adding a little bit of detail onto the hat and the little bow tie, etc. And my plan was to put little gifts in their hands, in their paws, I guess, but I did forget to do that on him first, so I will add that later. I also forgot it on what I'm turning into, a little bear. I don't know what this creature is supposed to be, if it's supposed to be a bear or not, but I'm making it a black bear, because I love black bears, with a brown snout and a brown tummy and little brown toes on those little teeny tiny feet, which are just so cute. And I was kind of fighting with how fat to make the little brown bear, because it's almost like too skinny to be a brown bear, which is why I think it's possibly another animal. But maybe once you see it colored as a brown, as a brown bear or black bear or whatever, once you see it colored as a bear, you might start coloring it as a bear too. You might decide that that's what it is. The gift, as I said, I forgot to put the gift in there, so instead of worrying about it, I just pushed red into the colors that were there and went over it with some white detail. Nobody's going to know that I goofed it up and left it too late and had to do some repair work on it. The white pen fixes a myriad of things. The chairs I decided would be red because her birthday's in January, it's right after Christmas, and she kind of gets saddled, as most people do, with Christmas colors for things because we're all in Christmas mode. And I also thought if you're trying to finish up some last minute Christmas cards and you picked up this stamp set, you could try using these colors. Over on the blog, there's a picture of all the markers that I used because there's a lot of them in here. And for her eyes, when you're coloring eyes that are in a dark field, so she's a black bear, it helps to do something, if you can, like put glasses on. I used some colorless blender to just push glasses into the picture and then draw the eyeballs back in. I did decide I wanted a darker brown for the snout and the tummy, so ended up adding another layer of color to that. And then there's the bunny that I wanted to appear more white, but even with white things, there is contrast there. So I put some 5 in the shadow portions. These are all W markers. And I put some 5 in there, started blending it with some 3, and then I'm going to go over it with some 0. Or you can do that with 0 or 00 or 1 or whatever. That lightens up the color that's already there, but it leaves a little bit of that dark shadow in the dark areas. but it removes some of the other. So you can see I'm getting some roundness, but it's still looking like a white bunny. And then, of course, handling the red chair. So the red is going to stand up also against all of that snow that's going to be back there. You could do a card like this as well for Valentine's Day, because for a lot of people it'll still be snowy around Valentine's Day, but leave off the poinsettia that I put in the whole bunny's hair because I couldn't resist. I'm still in Christmas mode. Hopefully my niece will still be okay with getting a little bit of Christmas on her birthday card because it's just so stinking cute. So a little white pen detail on that gift as well, and a bow on the fox's present. And then we get to move on to the snow. Now, crunchy snow on the ground is sort of horizontal and just skippy, scribbly lines. And then I'm making a path going off camera or off scene for each one of the critters because they came from somewhere. There's going to be little feet prints and made kind of bigger fat footprints for the bear, since the bear is going to be a little bit bigger and have bigger paws to walk around. And then I created a little hillside with a little bit of crunchy snow on it back there. And then I'm just going to do some really simple trees in the background. And I'm just doing some flicking. Flicking is when you take the marker and lay it down. And as you make that stroke, you just lift up the marker. And so I'm doing it from the top down and from the bottom up. And that gives me that sort of look of trees in the background. I'll add a little bit more detail to that later once I add some more to the snow. So this feels like snow, right? I just want you to kind of get in your mind what this looks like. And then I'm going to add in some contrast. And this is the step that a lot of people are afraid of, which is adding a darker color. So I went from B41, which is the first color, to a B45, which is this darker one. And it just adds a lot of focus to it. You definitely are looking at those little prints down there now. I also went in with some B91, and that's another really light color, but it's a little more desaturated. And I'm just putting a little bit around all that B45 so that it's not as jarring, but it still retains that nice darkness. And just adding more crunchiness to the snow, as well as darkening this foreground. Because in art, when you can push the viewer into the picture, and that's what this shading does, it pushes you away from getting lost in all that detail in the foreground into that midground where the creatures are, because that's what you want to be looking at. And then for the background, I'm going to add, now that all that is dry, just some really light little trees. And you can use the B41, the B91, and you could also, if you have a ton of color back there, if you went crazy with it, use a white pen to add that kind of detail in there. And it'll just create the feeling of being a forest back there without having to really focus on any trees. Just keep it really soft and light. And then you've got a really nice foreground, midground where all the action is, and then a really soft background way off in the back. And it wouldn't be a winter card by me if it did not have snow on it, right? You can put a lot of snow, you can put a little snow. I'm going to put really giant flakes on this because in that background, I'm not really going to be able to see a lot of little teeny tiny dots. I can see the bigger ones, but I can't see tiny ones. So on a card like this, I'll keep the snow kind of big, fat snowflakes. I don't know if there's a name for different kinds of snow, like there is where I live. We have names for all the different kinds of rain, but maybe there's a name for big, fat snowflakes, because that's what I'm putting on this one. So decide on what's going to show up against whatever background or whatever scene you've got going on, because you don't want to go to all that work and have nobody be able to see it because it's either too busy or something like that. So my finished card didn't need anything more than having a sentiment added to it. And that was it. Just stick it on a card base. I love that about scene cards. You don't have to own all of the supplies and use all of the stuff. You get to just use all the coloring things that you own. Speaking of coloring things that you own, if you're a Copic marker person and would like to learn to color the fox from the Let's Curl Up stamp set that just came out from MFT, then join me this evening on Facebook. You can go to the MFT blog right now and go pick up the free download of this image so you can color along with me. It's from the stamp set Let's Curl Up, but you can buy the stamp set. But in the meantime, learn how to color the fox, and I'll show you how to color that wall since the fox needed something to sit on, I thought that would be a good thing to learn. So join me at 5 p.m. There's going to be a link over on the MFT blog so you can find me on Facebook. And I will see you there. I'm excited. All right. I will talk to you guys again in 2021. Oh my goodness. Bye-bye.